Auden Larratt. It's time, mate. Welcome to Arm Wars. Fair to say, you had a little bit of a difficult journey getting here, mate.
Yeah, that would be an understatement, I think. Airport's just such a mess right now.
So let's take a couple of steps back and start at the beginning. You guys have been doing a bit of a tour.
Yep.
The idea of, well, Devon, just walk people through the idea of what you were looking to achieve on this trip. Multi-layered.
So it really starts with the intention of arm wrestling just growing for Auden a little bit. So Auden has graduated high school, and he's in a gap year. He's working. He's doing a lot of self-development, but arm wrestling has become a bigger part of his life, and so we made plans very vaguely that I would kind of try and find ways to help develop him. More than just, Auden and I have been practicing arm wrestling for a long time, but when you're young, I always felt that the more experience you could get, obviously it's a big thing, experience from pulling different people, from seeing different parts of the arm wrestling culture, from being able to touch and get close to the arm wrestling professors.
Yeah.
So last time I was in Istanbul, I asked Engin, who I consider one of the highest authorities in the sport of arm wrestling, if he could have some time, potentially sometime around one of the events, if he could mentor Auden for some time. And he agreed. So so then I had my match with Hermes, and we had the dark card here, and it just created this scenario where Auden and I could come over early. We could train with Engin for almost a week.
About a week, yeah.
About a week, where every day, Engin's such a great guy. He took the time and gave Auden one-on-one training for multiple hours every single day, where he very precisely guided him through his system. And I know to learn from Engin is a lifetime, but Auden's on a level where he understands the language, he understands the lingo. He's a great student, so I think that he was able to get a lot from him.
Yeah.
Then we have the rest piece before my match, and then this at Arm Wars. So we've done the training piece, and now we've got the rest, and now we move into Auden's first international super match at Arm Wars, and we couldn't be more excited and happy.
So 18 years of age, first ever super match. Fair to say, this is quite a precious situation for you, Auden, because it's not for anyone at 18 years of age coming into the sport in the short period of time that you've had it. And sort of, let's just break that down for people. How long would you say you've been seriously pursuing arm wrestling? I know you've been around it all your life, but when did you sort of make the conscious decision, I'm going to follow in my dad's footsteps and this is the path I want to take?
So I think I really made the switch when I was probably last summer, so about a year at this point, a little bit over a year, because of my shoulder injury. I hurt my shoulder, and it kind of stopped me from training a lot of different things that I was doing, but I had my right arm still. So I was able to really change to arm wrestling and just use my right arm. And then once my left was healed again, I started training my left again, and then I was totally in at that point. And my right had already gotten way better, so I was just trying to catch up with my left, and now I'm at the point where I'm fully in both arms.
And did you have any sort of sporting background? Had you really pursued any other sports seriously at this point, mate?
Yeah, I did. For about a year and a half, I trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu basically every night of the week, like 2 hours plus. And I did that seriously for a while, and I think I got pretty good.
Yeah.
But then I hurt my shoulder, so that one had to go. I couldn't grapple anymore without seriously risking perpetual injury in my shoulder.
And how long has it taken you to sort of get yourself seasoned, as we call it, in the sport of arm wrestling? Do you still have any knots, aches, pains? Do you suffer from that a lot, or are you pretty fluid now? You can go quite hard and 2 days later you're back.
Because I think I've done it my entire life, I kind of skipped all of that. I never really had those aches and pains. Okay. I had a bit in my elbow because it was hurt before, but now it's much more solid. But people get the newbie pains when they start arm wrestling, and it makes them like super terrible and they hate the sport because of it.
Yeah.
I basically skipped that entire process. I came in and could arm wrestle hard every single day with no issues.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I mean, Auden talks about, it being a year of dedicated arm wrestling, and I'll totally back that up. But when he says a year of dedicated arm wrestling, he training. I'll say I look at, because I'm a completely full-time arm wrestler,
Yeah.
and I watch our Auden train, and I'm like basically training just as hard as I am.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what it means. Like when he says he's in the last year, like he's really. I know how much energy he puts into it, and it's very good. Now you have to understand that it's not just a year. Right, he has really grown up in an arm wrestling house, where arm wrestling lifestyle is just very normal. Mm-hmm. So what other people may think is, a lot of experience Auden perceives as basically nothing. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, you can go back and watch Auden compete at the Nationals when he's like 3 years old. Yeah. Okay, so he's had his foot in it very casually, just as this is what happens in a house for basically his whole life. So so he doesn't look like a 1-year arm wrestler.
And when you say this is like your normal, and your house of arm wrestling is anything but normal in terms of the intensity levels, I think it's fair to say that you probably train more than probably anyone. You're certainly right up there. From a table time perspective, I would say I've never seen anybody as active on the table for continuous back-to-back periods.
I think that if I were to honestly quantify it, I probably at this point in my life have, hundreds of % more table time than any other person.
Oh, really?
I don't think there's anybody who's even remotely close to has done the amount of table time that I've done.
So many times I talk to the top guys in the world, and when they see the Germany thing, I mean, my God. Just tell people about the Germany experience.
Yeah, well,
how often you pulled.
I mean, I try. There's many periods of my life when I try and be on the table every day. It's not always the answer. Like me being on the table every day isn't always the answer, but it's an answer that I come up with a lot. And sometimes when I break into a routine where I'm touring, when I'm going to different countries, and there's hundreds of 100 people show up, and I want to arm wrestle all of them. And that can take all day. Germany, I think we arm wrestled basically for 11 hours off and on. Yeah, it was really a lot, and somehow I've found a way to survive these experiences. I've found a way where I can do this over and over and over, and part of it is a technical thing. It's a style thing that you learn after committing so much time to it. But anyways, real happy that Auden's having fun with this trip and this little piece in his life where he's able to kind of see the world that I live in, and potentially he's living in more and more now.
Now, the first big thing people have been saying to you is, "Wow, you're a big frame. You've got your dad's frame." Mm-hmm. You told us the other day that you were actually pretty much the same physical stats that your dad had at the same age.
A little bit heavier, I think, but everything else the same.
Okay, so you're a little heavier than he was.
I am, yeah. But that's because I've really committed to eating and trying to be as fat as I can. But it's tough for me because my metabolism is really, really tough at my age.
And I'm sure a lot of people at home are keen to understand whether you have any of the other unique or seemingly pretty rare traits that your dad has. The endurance has always been a huge one. Right back in the infancy of your dad's career, we used to focus on that a great deal. The fact that you could go and go. Are you aware of that? Do you have that same endurance gene?
I'd say probably. I am able to normally out-endure almost anybody I pull with. I think it might not even be a genetic thing. It's just how we happen to train.
Volume-wise, yeah.
So high volume on the table.
Yeah.
How arm wrestling, it's not really even like a workout at this point. It's just something we do. It's a way of life.
Yeah.
So arm wrestling itself is I'm able to just like have so much more energy doing it than say another exercise.
Walking around the house.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tremendous. I mean, I love that whole concept is amazing. It's great. Do you think that when you look back on your career, Devon, before you really got into arm wrestling, do you think you had a natural predisposition for extreme endurance? Because the Ironmans and all the other things you did when you were in the military, it seemed like everybody was, was singling you out as the guy who was a bit of a weirdo. You had the press-ups. I mean, push-ups as they call them in the US, but that's truly remarkable what you were able to, particularly with your body shape and body design. It's amazing.
I really believe that the endurance that I'm kind of known for, it is, I think Auden said it, it's a result of, there's probably something there genetically that opens up the door for you to be able to develop it. But, when I was a kid, I mean, we had a 400-meter track at our high school, and I remember, being in public school and supposed to run around the track, and by halfway around the track, I'd be fully gassed out.
Were you aware of lactic acid?
Oh yeah,
and so you're very familiar with that. It's not, because I know there are guys out there who literally don't produce lactic acid.
No. I would
That's
be
not you.
lactic acid and gassed out, and I mean the push-up thing. I mean, when I started doing push-ups, I could do like 35 push-ups. It was because I kept doing them and doing them and doing them, and then I developed, And with the Ironman, I was not a distance runner, but I became one. I became one. Arm wrestling, I think a lot of it is endurance, but a lot of it is technique as well. And I think a lot of people overlook that portion of it. If you're technically a very efficient arm wrestler, you will be perceived as having great endurance. And I know now the difference between my right arm and my left arm. Yeah. And my right arm doesn't get tired. It doesn't. You really can't make my right arm tired. You really can't. It's very, very hard. Like, you can beat it, you can make it go to failure, you give it a couple minutes, it's back. Unless you injure my right arm, it basically bounces back. Whereas my left will completely gas out. Yeah, because I don't train it. So I know that it is adaptation. It's not just some gift that I have. It's a result of every day, all day, focusing on a goal and just continuing to work towards it.
Amazing concept, that is. Absolutely unbelievable. Now let's talk about the sort of progression of your career, mate, because where we started with this, you're not the guy that's just coming in at 18 years old with a normal amount of pressure. It's more difficult than that, because you're the son of the most universally recognised arm wrestler on the planet. Are you aware of that, Auden? Are you conscious of it?
Well, of course I'm conscious of it. I see it everywhere I go. People will come at me like, "Oh, I love your dad," and I watch you on YouTube, and I understand the pressure's there, and of course I feel it. But to me, I just see too many positives in it. I find that it gives me so many opportunities. Like this, for example, I probably wouldn't have this opportunity if I wasn't his son. So I think that the doors that it had opened, and all the ability that I've gotten from him being my dad and the pressure surrounding that has just made me a better arm wrestler than I would have been if he wasn't.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of sort of the management of the steps in Auden's career, obviously I know that's something you want to be very diligent about, Dev, in terms of how he stepped on, the type of arm wrestler, the type of opponent that he pulled at a certain time. I know you've tried to, for example, steer him out of the test your frame style of arm wrestling at this stage and make him more of the finesse puller, make him more of Kurigawa Ongabayev than Zurab Tabbaridze. When you look at what he's got in front of him here, coming into a four-man battleground where he's pulling against guys who've got more experience than he has, that are obviously mature in the sport, how comfortable are you with what's coming? Do you think that, do you feel like Auden's coming in here as a favourite? Do you see him as a slight underdog? And if so, why?
There's a lot of unknowns for us stepping into this. Auden's on in my opinion, steep trajectory. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to track, where he is, where he will be. We have tried to keep him a very clean, precise, outside, efficient, top-rolling machine. This is how Auden was kind of created, and this is how I would try and plot anyone's journey in arm wrestling. Ideally, the truth is arm wrestling is that, and it's also test your frame. Mm-hmm. And now at 18, leading up to this point, it's been very much a focus of have fun, enjoy, do not get hurt, progression, small steps, minimum risk. But the more love and commitment and willingness Auden continues to show, the more I have to kind of open the doors and, expose him to more risk and more option to test his frame, to put him in uncomfortable situations where he will really get experience, where he will have to grow, not just over the training, over the months leading up, but he will have to grow in the fight, grow in the moment. And this is where your greatest growth comes. Like when you're in the heat of a hard match and you can somehow find the answers. Yeah, this is great. And at 18, with Auden's level of commitment, super excited to be here. Super excited, I think that this is the perfect level. Arm Wars is very representative of what I view the sport as. I think that Arm Wars culture, it's beautiful. And we're honored to be here and fight in Arm Wars, because I know what Arm Wars stands for, and I think it's a beautiful portrayal of the sport.
Thank you, man. Thanks very much. We myself and James share that sentiment. We're really, really honoured that you would trust us with Auden's start in the sport. It really does mean a lot, and we put a lot of thought into this battleground, into the mix. The biggest thing here is to try and get a feel for your level, Auden, where you're at, mate, because this is the first time we've met. A lot of our sort of matchmaking is based around trying to put out maximum entertainment for the arm wrestling fans, so that they get to see very balanced, very, very solid matches. And also, in my time as a puller, I always enjoyed, more than anything else, being in a war. I could lose a war and actually feel better than if I won a flash pin or beat the hell out of some guy. That never really gave me anything, I wasn't too bothered about going into the crowd and slapping hands with guys and saying, oh, well done. If I came off blowing like hell, couldn't catch my breath, couldn't feel my arm, that's what we're there for, That's what I enjoyed the most. So in time, I know we will get there with you without a shadow of a doubt, but I'm also very keen to see what you can do, what your skill level is at right now. In terms of the guys that you're going to arm wrestle, one of them you've met, Tom Wilson is here.
Yeah.
He's on the opposite side. Initial thoughts, mate? Have you any initial thoughts about him?
Yeah. So he's obviously a very hook-based style arm wrestler, and that can sometimes give me issues, but because I'm so much taller than him and definitely have longer arms than him, I feel like probably I'll be able to crack him, just because my leverage will be so. I will just, by setting up, already have the height.
Yeah.
Like, it'll be almost impossible for him to beat me in height. So all I need to do is crack his cup, and I think that's definitely a possibility.
Now, obviously, you look at the guys on the other side of the bracket, and you've got an eye on him, but the guy immediately in front of me is Chris Ham.
Yes.
Chris is much nearer to you. He's more of that purist top roll model. He's the guy that's not really looking to come in at you. He's going to try and take away your hand and wrist. Again, smaller frame. You've got the benefit that a lot of young men have, that you haven't got that density in the bones and so on. So you're a very big frame. Just tell people how tall you are, mate.
I'm about 6'3" or so. Yeah.
So 6'3". It won't be easily visible for the guys at home. But let me tell you now, Auden has got a very, very solid frame. He's like a Great Dane puppy. Or you can see the bone structure is, if anything, there's a chance he'll end up bigger than Devon. He's certainly going to fill out a great deal. But right now, I think it's fair to say at this class, you are big at the class,
Yeah, for sure.
Where do you expect Auden will end up weight class-wise, mate, at the end of the day? Do you see him like minimum 100 kilo? Looking at him, he's big.
It's hard to say. And we don't like to talk about weight too much in terms of goal. Like we like to talk about health
Yeah.
Health and fitness, and this is the most important thing. I think that Auden will likely be a lot like I was.
Yeah.
So, I consistently put on 10 pounds a year until I was about 24.
And you settled around the 220 class, didn't you, really?
No, I cut to the 220.
So you were walk round heavier?
Yeah, I walked around. When I was in fabulous shape, I was like high 230s. But it wasn't long until I was like 245, more just that's where I was. Yeah. 245 was my weight that I sat at a mature level for probably 15 years, basically, from the time I was 25 till 40. Probably I was 245 plus or minus, and I could easily cut to the 100 kilo. So
at that time that's when you were doing the tours, you were in active service.
Yeah.
You were running a lot.
Yeah.
Because you used to be able to run like hell.
Right. So I think I won the Ironman. I won the Ironman probably weighing 237 or 238.
Bloody hell, fine.
Yeah. And that's a 60-kilometer race. So yeah. So I could carry the weight very well. 245 was a very comfortable, completely sustainable weight where I was eating everything, training heavy and every day. So I mean, I think that Auden will probably be somewhere in that vicinity. Okay. Maybe a little bit smaller, maybe bigger. It's hard to say. I think that we're similar. That's what I think. Because at 18, I was in that 180. I was about 6'2", 6'3". So it's right exactly where I was.
How tall is your mum, then?
My mom, I think she's like almost 6 foot, like 5'11".
And your dad?
My dad was like 6'2", 6'3".
So your dad, yeah, and Geordie's what, 5'7"?
Yeah,
5'6"?
probably. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're 6'5"?
Yeah. Yeah.
You might be a big boy, mate.
Yeah, it's probably similar. I think it'll probably end up very similar. Yeah. I mean, Milo is basically my height now.
And he's 20?
Yeah.
20 years old, 6'5", yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I wanted to get from the horse's mouth from you is the really intriguing conversations that we had around that whole how your left arm deviates, because you came over to pull Sandra Sedis, and the Sandra Sedis match was scheduled right arm. You ended up pulling left arm.
Yep.
As things tend to evolve when we're here. But that was a better match.
Yes, it was.
Just blew the right arm match away.
Yeah,
it was the entertaining match of the weekend. It ignited the whole place. It was fantastic. But your left was at a certain level.
Yeah.
You then contacted me, 2 weeks before Dark Card 2?
Right.
Where we'd matched Devon based on what we'd seen at Dark Card. And Devon's exact words, Neil, I've got a bit of a problem. And I thought, oh shit, you can't make something's going. And he said, my left right now is pretty strong.
Yes.
It's like really. So walk me through that. How? Because you didn't train. How
it's
the hell?
Very interesting how my left is really all over the place. So the amount of rest I give it is incredible. It doesn't do any. I don't have a job. I don't have work to do. So basically, I get an extreme amount of rest, which always sets conditions favorably for whatever else is going on. If I'm training, the rest makes it get stronger. If I'm just resting, well, then it's extremely responsive. It's extremely responsive. So when I have long periods when I don't do anything and my left settles, as soon as I start to train it again, it responds very quickly. So, and because the only thing I really ever do with it is arm wrestle, it's become very specialized. Much more, I would say, even though my left is nowhere near my right, my left is probably actually more accurately trained for arm wrestling than my right is, because there is no deviation from arm wrestling. I only arm wrestle with it. My left hand has taught me a lot about the human body, rest, specificity, and it's given me some ideas about right-left crossover. It's very fast.
you talk about diligence in breaking down opponents and so on, and I wanted to sort of speak to you both about how you would do that. So let's say, for example, the Hermes match. When you were coming over to Istanbul, when you were there for the months leading up to this, when was Hermes confirmed formally? Because originally you were going to pull
4 weeks.
So 4 weeks. In that 4 weeks period, were you sat with your dad going through Gasparini matches, looking in detail at his hand, his wrist, his position, his stance, where his strengths were? Did that happen or not much?
So he was actually at my grandma's at that point, but we both did it separately. I watched all Hermes' stuff, and he did as well. So kind of separately watched it. Every once in a while, we'd call each other up and talk a little bit about the matches and about what we thought. But we were in separate places. We couldn't watch it together.
And when you got over to Turkey, were you working on that? Did you have sort of a game plan on how to approach the match? Was it very defined set of criteria that you were trying to work on and did you speak about that a lot?
Yeah, we definitely did. There was two things with Hermes that we talked about. The big one was beat his wrist, take his hand, like break the cup, and then from there make sure he can't flop. Yeah. Those are the two things that we discussed that he kind of knew that he had to get done, and that was really what happened actually in the match as well.
The more kind of subtle pieces as well was his potential weakness to off-balance situations and his reliance on clean starts and the way he spoke in the setup. These were key pieces that we were kind of talking about and going after as well. And psychologically leading up, these were like, Auden helped me write the poem, you know, the Crying Hermes poem. Yeah. Because we knew that this was one of Hermes' strengths and that he would try and use it against me. So we tried to shape the entire situation so that it would minimize his ability to do it, and he would feel ashamed, and he would become concerned about the setup, and it worked very well actually this time.
And if you look at Georgi Svetkov with the left arm, or to be honest, all of your left arm matches, I get the feeling that you're not breaking them down. You're sort of, it's like chaos. Chaos rules. Totally. Have you spoken at all with your dad about, I'm going to pull 2-time WAF world champion, super heavyweight, who very rarely, if ever, gets top rolled by anyone.
Never been top rolled.
Just never been top rolled. And you're just casually going into this match on the left arm that you don't actually train.
Yeah.
And you still give yourself a pretty good shot, and so does everybody else, including your opponent.
People are crazy. I mean, it's pretty wild. Auden and I have talked about it. Yeah. I am really excited to pull Georgi. I really am. I'm well aware of who he is and what he does. I do not train. I don't really, there's not a lot of planning I've done to mess with Georgi, or I purposefully am investing all of my energy in my right hand, and my left is just here for the good times. And surprisingly, this strategy is not too bad. It really is not too bad.
Are you gonna do that with your boy? Are you gonna do that with? Is Auden gonna be balanced?
Yeah.
The thing is so
he's like that. I will speak on behalf of myself to say that.
It's very extreme. What I've done, it's a very big sacrifice to the sport in terms of specificity. Like, there's not much to be gained as an overall athlete to only train your right hand. You know, it's basically it's a testament for my love for the sport. You know, and you know, from a health perspective, and especially as a young man, I think that, you know, it's good that he developed both hands. But it's interesting. It's very interesting that I believe that the hook for Auden, what got him into the sport, was him training just his right hand, and him seeing what the difference was between his right and his left hand. I think that actually is what secured his position coming into the sport.
Yeah, I'd say definitely it was, because when I was just training my right arm, I could look at my two different hands, and at this point they're more similar. My right's definitely a bit bigger in like the thumb area and everything.
A lot bigger.
It is, but it used to be even more.
Bloody hell, it's a lot bigger.
It was 6 weeks, right? Was it 6 weeks?
Can we get a?
Yeah.
We'll get a shot of that, which will clip in or something.
It was unbelievable the amount of gains that Auden made during this 6 week period of only training his right hand.
Is your forearm that degree of?
Yeah,
That's a massive
significantly.
difference.
The bit even bigger is the bicep difference.
Yeah.
This one, when I flex it, looks like nothing. This one, you can like see everything.
Yeah.
Big difference in both the arms.
Just go like that.
Yeah, it's a very, very big difference. At least an inch in thickness.
Yeah, and the thumb's thicker. Like this,
Way
the thumb's
bigger.
a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it used to be even more. So I could see that. I could see the actual growth that I made.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh wow, this training really does work. So that kind of got me to be like, yeah, what I'm doing is working. And it got me to stay doing it.
Absolutely tremendous. Now, in terms of, if you look at your development so far, we've spoken about the fact that you specialise top roll. Will there be a point in time, is there a defined point in time where you will move to that, okay, the next stage is we've got to put some meat on these bones, we've got to get a little bit more of that power and some technical proficiency in the inside systems of arm wrestling. Do you see where that will be? Is there a set time in your mind, or?
I already do. I already train for inside and stuff a bit. Like I when I do my training, I'm training cup, I'm training low cup multi, I'm training supination.
Yep.
I'm doing it all. So and in the when I'm like arm wrestling at the club, like when I'm doing practices, I will pull happily inside all the time.
Okay.
Like some people, I can't beat them outside, and I'll arm wrestle inside. So I'm training both all the time. Like I feel very confident inside with many people, but most of the time, just because of how I'm built, my top roll is normally better.
And when you get to a situation, Dev, where obviously your hook is exceptional, hence the No Limits moniker. You've got all bases covered, fulcrum strong enough, and yours certainly is. Now, do you feel like you will do the same thing that you've done now, where you're taking the best guys in the world in terms of their technical proficiency for inside pulling, and go spend time with Daniel Prokopchuk? Go and spend time with these guys. Is that the plan?
For sure. I'd love to just continue to expose Auden to all the people who just are really passionate and who have their system completely nailed down.
If you were picking, let's talk a little bit of shortlisting here. Because if you were saying to me, who would you send him to see to learn that, or who would you even bring in for a training camp at your place, who I'm sure would accept with open arms? Have you got any short list of guys? Because I know one that jumps to my mind immediately because of his frame, stature, and what I believe he can do. And we've actually just seen him on the event you were at in East versus West, and it will be Ivan Matyushenko.
Oh, wow.
We're talking a 6'4".
Yeah.
Incredible.
And in terms of his ability to set the hook
Incredible.
and positioning in the hook, I'm not sure there's anybody better.
That's what we've already had.
No,
this
we
discussion.
talked about that. Yeah.
I mean, he is a magnificent inside puller.
We had this discussion. I told Auden, like, we're walking around, I'm like, this is the best guy in the world for setting a hook. I'm
Yes,
like,
it is.
Like anything
It
he
is.
said. So we asked him a bunch of questions already, and but yeah, of course, like if we can go to Moscow, if we can go to Shadra, we're lucky growing up where we are. Like, I feel like Ontario, there's a lot of people who love and care deeply about arm wrestling.
Yeah.
I want to continue to expose Auden to everybody that's possible, not just in mentorship, but in just exposing him to competition against different athletes. Expose him to guys who can really pull inside. And through that, it's basically, that's a great lesson.
Yes.
When you have to fight these guys, and when you prepare to fight these guys, this is, in my mind, probably ideal, as opposed to let's go and study under them for 2 weeks, or let's get ready to fight one of these guys.
Yeah.
It's
you're going to get out of the cage with great white sharks. You better understand sharks.
Yeah, you have to fight. You have to, and when it comes to like the inside portion of arm wrestling, I believe that it all works together, right? It's arm wrestling. Arm wrestling's a package, and say you're a top roller, that's what you are. The more you can press, the more you can inside hook, the more your top roll opens. You know, everything is a balanced package, and the more you can do inside arm wrestling, the better your outside goes, the better your outside is. So it's one thing, really. It's one system, and it all flows together. I happen to believe that most of the times you want to initiate on the outside if possible. It's not always the answer, not always. The interesting thing is the rule of intimacy. This is probably one of the harder lessons to kind of fully understand and learn. And you know, you have to be just close to someone.
Yeah.
You have to be close to someone, but just over top of them. And then sometimes that means against a very talented inside puller, you must go in and match them. You must.
Guys, absolutely fascinating insight. I want to say again, we are to have you both here. I'm really sorry the journey over here was as punishing and challenging as it clearly was. I really hope it hasn't impacted either of you, and I'm excited to see you both do what you do well.
Good times. Thank you, Neil.
Thanks for having us.
Top man.